We will start with Revelation chapter 15, verse 6 and 7. Now you'll remember in Revelation chapter 15, which is the shortest chapter in the book of Revelation, we saw the seven angels came out of the temple having the seven plagues. These angels were clothed in pure and white linen and have their breasts girded with golden girdles. And one of the four beasts gave unto the seven angels seven golden vials full of the wrath of God, who liveth forever and ever. So this is where our lesson will start tonight. Revelation chapter 15. Remember, there is a temple in heaven. The temple is in heaven. And out of that temple came out seven angels, dressed properly, clothed in white, pure and white linen, and they had a golden sash across their chests, and they had in their hands the seven last plague of God. Now, in the next verse, which is Revelation 15:7, we learn where they got the seven last plagues from. One of the four beasts, or one of the four creatures that has a permanent position before the throne of God, gave these seven angels seven golden vials full of the wrath of God. Now, I said if you were to read another version of the book of Revelation in another translation of the Bible, they will say seven bowls. In this verse, they say seven golden vials. In other verses, they say seven vials. And in the previous verse, they just said the seven plagues, all meaning the same thing. These seven angels came out of the temple in heaven, having the seven last plagues in their hands. So the key thing to remember here is they came out of the temple, which is in heaven. When they came out of the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power. And no man was able to enter into the temple till the seven plagues of the seven angels were fulfilled. So this is where we are starting our class. You see the seven angels coming out of the temple. Each angel have a golden vial in their hand, or a bowl, but it contains the wrath of God, which is the seven last plagues. When these angels left the temple was filled with the glory of God and from his power, smoke, that no one was able to enter into the temple. And until the seven plagues are fulfilled. So if the seven plagues took a year, 2 years, 3 years, 1 month, regardless of how long it took to deliver the seven last plagues, no man was able to enter into the temple. Now you'll remember the first angel poured out his bowl on the man who had the mark of the beast, and the man who worshiped the image and who worshiped the Antichrist. The bowl was poured out on them, and they were covered with grievous and noisome sores. And the second bowl was poured out into the ocean, and the ocean became like the blood of dead men, like a dead man. And the third bowl was poured out on the fresh water, which became blood. And the fourth was poured out onto the sun, and the sun was given power to scorch the men that had the mark of the beast upon them or worship his image. And then the fifth bowl was poured out on the seat or the kingdom of the Antichrist. And darkness fell upon the kingdom of the Antichrist. Then when the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." So when the seventh angel poured out his vial or his bowl, he poured it out into the air, and a voice from the throne of God said, "It is done." So we will assume at this point that the tribulation period should be over, because all the judgments that's supposed to happen during the tribulation period was finished. When the seventh vial is poured out, it is done. But then something happened after that. Something happened after the angel poured out his seventh vial, that God had to do or show us another portion of the tribulation period. So let's see what happened. In Revelation chapter 16, verse 19, and the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God. So this is what happened. The tribulation period unofficially supposed to be finished when God said it is done. But great Babylon came into remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So he had some business to take care of. So in Revelation chapter 16, 19, this is what happened. So we have Revelation 17 and 18. God have to deal with Babylon. Great Babylon came into his remembrance. So now we have to see, why did this happen? Now I am going to show you something in the scripture, and this is my theory. And follow with me and you will see what I'm talking about. Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 63 and 64. And it shall be, now we are talking about from the Old Testament, Jeremiah is talking. And it shall be, when thou hast made an end of the reading of this book, that thou shalt bind a stone to it and cast it into the midst of the Euphrates. And thou shalt say, thus shall Babylon sink, and shall not rise from the evil that I will bring upon her. And they shall be weary. Thus far are the words of Jeremiah. Now, we learn about Babylon from the book of Revelation. We learn about the destruction of Babylon from the book of Revelation. We learn about Babylon from Genesis chapter 1, when man was trying to reach God, when he built the big tower to go up to heaven. However, the destruction of Babylon was spoken of in the book of Isaiah. It was spoken of in the book of Ezekiel, and most of all in the book of Jeremiah. And this, I think, is very interesting, because God told Jeremiah, when you are finished reading the book, which talks about the destruction of Babylon, and you can read Jeremiah 51 and Jeremiah 50, chapter 50 and 51, Isaiah chapter 13, Ezekiel 4, and Ezekiel 47. All these chapters talk about the destruction of Babylon. But in Jeremiah chapter 51, Jeremiah, when you are finished reading the book, you tie a stone to this book and you cast it in the midst of the river Euphrates. Now, this is my theory. When this is done, you got to remember the book that recorded the destruction of Babylon is in the river Euphrates. Now, look what happened. And the sixth angel, this is Revelation chapter 16, verse 12, and the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. Now remember, the book that recorded the destruction of Babylon is tied to a stone thousands of years before, and was in the midst of the river Euphrates. Now this river is dried up. Is it possible that God preserved that book at the bottom of the river? Is it possible that God saw the stone that the book was tied to when the river dried up in Revelation chapter 16, verse 12? then suddenly Babylon came back into the remembrance of God. So this is what I believe. This is my theory, and you can check it out and make some sense out of it. So God remembered Babylon. Unofficially, the tribulation period should have ended when the seventh bowl was poured out. God said it is done. The judgment is finished. However, he had some more business to take care of. So he showed us in Revelation chapter 17 and Revelation 18, the destruction of the two Babylons. Now, the first Babylon in Revelation 17 is what we did in our last sitting, and we said that is a system, a religious system. And the woman that was sitting on the beast is the religious system who will be destroyed by the kings in Revelation chapter 17. Now we are getting to Revelation chapter 18. Now Revelation chapter 18 started off, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven. This is Revelation chapter 18 verse 1. This is this is the beginning of our class today. And after these things, that is after Revelation 15, 16, and 17, after these things, John said, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. Now, who does this angel not represent? This angel is not Jesus. It is an angel. Jesus never came down during the tribulation period or the book of Revelation as an angel. An angel did an angel's job. Now, this is very interesting. And what we are doing in our study is we are going through verse by verse, phrase by phrase, and trying to understand it, building or laying a very good foundation that you can build on. This is not the end of prophecy. This is just the beginning of prophecy. This is the laying of the foundation of the book of Revelation. And in this verse, you can see the ministry of angels in the book of Revelation. You can just study the part that angels had to play in the book of Revelation, starting from Revelation chapter 1 and come through the entire book. This is a study in itself, the ministry of angels, or you can say the participation of angels in the book of Revelation. So I entitled this slide, The Ministry of Angels in the book of Revelation. This is by no means complete. I am just trying to tickle your fancy so that you can go on your own and study the ministry of angels in the book of Revelation. It started in Revelation chapter 1 verse 7. 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth. This is the 4 angels that was holding back the winds of judgment. It continued in Revelation chapter 7 verse 2. Another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of God. And this is where they sealed 144,000. Revelation chapter 8 verse 2. The 7 angels which stood before God, and to them was given the 7 trumpets. So 7 angels, and their job was to blow the trumpets, prepare themselves and blow the trumpets. Then in Revelation chapter 8 verse 13, an angel flying through the midst of heaven saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe. This angel was making an announcement to the earth that this is something that is so bad that it is a woe. This is what is going to happen in Revelation 18. Now in Revelation 14, verse 8 through 18, 6 angels were making a number of announcements. They talk about the first harvest, the second harvest. They talk about Babylon is fallen. Again, this is the function of angels in the book of Revelation. It will be an amazing study. And then Revelation 15 verse 1, the 7 angels having the 7 last plagues. Now this is by no means a complete list of the angels and their function in the book of Revelation. I am just giving you a little insight into the vastness of the angels taking part in the book of Revelation and the tribulation period. Now, you got to remember that these angels, the 4 angels, the 1 angels, the 7 angels, these angels are at the top of the food chain. They are elite angels because there is approximately, and I'm giving you a low number, 16 billion angels, approximately, a low number. These angels stand out at the top of the chain. They are special angels and they are servicing the earth on behalf of God. So this will be a wonderful study if you decide to follow it up. These are very special angels and their ministry in the book of Revelation is amazing. So another mighty angel, Revelation chapter 10 verse 1. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven. This will occur 3 times in the book of Revelation. Revelation chapter 10 verse 1, Revelation chapter 18 verse 1, and Revelation 20 verse 1. Exact same word. John said, I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with the clouds, and a rainbow upon his head, and his face was as the sun, and his feet like the pillar of fire. Then we have this one, Revelation chapter 20 verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the keys to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. When we get there, we will discuss this angel. Extremely interesting information. So John saw another angel come down from heaven. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. So this mighty angel that came down from heaven is making an announcement. Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. And is become the habitation of devils and the hole of every foul spirit and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Now this Babylon is different from the Babylon in Revelation 17. This Babylon is named Babylon the Great, and is fallen, is fallen. Now, after this Babylon is fallen, the location of this Babylon is become the habitation of devils and the hole of every foul spirit and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So this Babylon is a place. The Babylon in Revelation chapter 17 was a religious system. That's the difference. And in Revelation 17:5, I will show you that in a second. In fact, let me go to that immediately. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. That is Revelation 18:2. And this is Revelation 17:5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abomination of the earth. So this is 2 different entity. One is a place, a city that is named Babylon, and the other is a system. So this is the 2 Babylons that we are talking about. Try not to mix them up as we go along. So we are talking about a place, and this started way in the Old Testament. Babylon is fallen. Look at Isaiah 21 verse 9. And he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her God had he broken onto the ground. So Babylon is fallen with some way back in the Old Testament. Look at this one, Jeremiah 51:8. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain. If so be, she might be healed. And the last one, therefore, the wild beasts of the desert and the wild beasts of the island shall dwell there, and the owl shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Now, this prophecy has not yet been fulfilled in Babylon. This prophecy has not yet been fulfilled in Babylon. This will be fulfilled at the end of the tribulation period. Most likely the last year of the tribulation period. But Babylon is fallen is not something that is designated only to the book of Revelation. Isaiah was calling for that way back then. Jeremiah was calling for this way back then. And in two chapters, chapter 50 and chapter 51. One of the interesting things is, you see, I underline here, the owl shall dwell therein. The owl shall dwell therein. And the Bible says, the hateful birds shall dwell in the city of Babylon. So my question is an owl a hateful bird? Do you know that today Israel breed owls by the thousands to get rid of the mice in the field? And the Bible is saying that the owl shall dwell in Babylon during the tribulation period. Now let's go on. This was first announced in the book of Revelation, in Revelation 14:8. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city. So this was announced in Revelation 14. But remember, I just showed you, it was announced way back in the Old Testament that Babylon is fallen. Let's go on. Now, this is interesting. Revelation chapter 8, verse 3. For all nations, this is how her influence spread during the tribulation period. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. All nations. This will be the 7 nations that comprise the Antichrist kingdom, and the 10 kings that also comprises the Antichrist kingdom. All nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. She was a world influence. Secondly, the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And thirdly, this is a new set of people added to the mix. The merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So we have 3 groups of people. One, we have all nations. Secondly, we have the kings of the earth. And last chapter of chapter 17, we saw 10 kings of the earth that had relationship with the woman or the great whore. Now that we are introduced to the merchants of the earth, and they were waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So 3 groups of people: the nations, the kings of the earth, and the merchants. All right, let's go on. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sin, and that ye receive not of her plagues. So at this point in time, there are still some of God's people dwelling in Babylon, or wherever that city Babylon is. God is warning them to come out of her and to do not partake of her sins. Now we have a number of verses like Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 45. My people, go ye out of her midst, and deliver ye every man his soul from the fierce anger of the Lord. And then Ephesians tell us, be not ye therefore partakers with them. And 1 Timothy 5:22 said, lay hands suddenly on no man, neither be partakers of another man's sin. Keep thyself pure. Do not have anything to do with Babylon or whatever she offers. Now, verse 5, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Now, we have seen this happen before. Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 9. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her. Let us go everyone into his own country. For her judgment reach unto heaven and is lifted up even to the skies. What is happening here is her sin has been piling one on top the other until it actually reaches heaven. We saw that happen to Nineveh in Jonah chapter 1, verse 2. Arise, go to Nineveh. He was talking to Jonah, that great city, and cry against them, for their wickedness is come up before me. So it is possible that the sins of a nation can pile one on top the other until it reaches heaven, and God have no choice but to answer. Now, and then we see in Revelation chapter 16, verse 19, and the great city was divided into three parts, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God. So God remembered her because her sins has been piling up and has reached heaven. Let's go on. Revelation chapter 18, verse 6. Now God is calling for a reward. Reward her. Reward her, even as she reward you, and double unto her double according to her works. This is the measure of punishment that God is going to lay upon this city called Babylon. Double unto her double according to her works, in the cup which she had filled to her double. Whatever she delivered to the people of God, God is now going to deliver unto her. Now, Jeremiah again, chapter 50. I encourage you to read Jeremiah 50 and 51. Call together the archers against Babylon, all ye that bend the bow. Camp against it round about. Let none therefore escape. Recompense her according to her works, according to all that she had done. Do unto her. This is what this verse is calling about. Do unto her as she did unto you. For she had been proud against the Lord and against the Holy One of Israel. So we are talking about the measure of her judgment that is going to take place. And you will see that in this chapter. Revelation chapter 18, verse 7. How much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her. For she said in her heart, I sit a queen, and I am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Now it is important to notice, for she said in her heart. She didn't tell anybody this. She said it to herself. I sit a queen. I am no widow. I see no sorrow. And when she talks about seeing no sorrow, it talks about the death of your child. When your child, if a child were to depart from you, that will be painful, that will be sorrow. But how she has lived deliciously, how she have glorified herself, this is how God is going to deal with her. But in this verse, for she said in her heart, I sit a queen. Now there were other places in the Bible that people said things in their heart and nobody heard it but they themselves. Mary was one of those people in Luke chapter 2, verse 19. But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. Mary said that in her heart. Hannah. Now Hannah spake in her heart when she was praying for a son. And then in Isaiah 47, verse 8, therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasure, that thou carelessly hast said in thy heart, and I have that on a slide here, that sayest in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. In other words, I'm it. I am the man. I am the person you got to deal with. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. So Babylon and her mischief and her punishment was designated way back in the Old Testament. And in the book of Revelation, you have the exact words poured out to her. Her punishment is as equal as it was said in the book of Isaiah. The same thing she said in Isaiah, and she said it in her heart. She didn't tell anybody it. She said, I am queen. I am the person. There's nobody like me. I am not a widow. I shall not see any, I shall not lose my children. And those are the exact things that God saw in her heart, and he acted on it in Revelation chapter 18. Look at verse 47, Isaiah 47, verse 9. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment in the day, the loss of children and widowhood. These are the two things that will happen to her in one day. So this is a punishment that God is preparing for her. And the reason for that is, for the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh in the heart. So, ladies and gentlemen, be careful what you say in your heart. If it's not pleasing to God, nobody is hearing you, but God is seeing it as clear as day. This is what Babylon did way back in the Old Testament. God didn't forget. God gave it to her in the New Testament, in the book of Revelation, before the end of time. Revelation chapter 18, verse 8. Therefore shall her plague come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord who judgeth her. Now Ezekiel 4:6. I think I have this on my slide. Let me see what I got. Yes. Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 6. And when thou hast accomplished them, lie down again on thy right side, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have appointed thee each day for 1 year. The previous verse that we just saw said her plague will come in 1 day. Now, according to the Bible, 1 day of punishment is equal to 1 year. In the verse I just showed you, Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 6. So the possibility exists that Babylon will be destroyed in the last year of the tribulation period, leading up to the Battle of Armageddon. This is what I gather from this. I have appointed thee each day for a year. Let's go on. Revelation chapter 18, verse 9. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Now, what is happening here is the first set of people to feel pain when Babylon is destroyed is the kings of the earth. The kings of the earth. They will bewail her. Now remember, these kings committed fornication with her. In other words, they had a very intimate relationship with her. They shall bewail her and they shall lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning. Now in the previous chapter, this is what we saw. Revelation chapter 17, verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast These shall hate the whore. This is Revelation 17. This is the difference between Revelation 17 and 18. The 10 kings in Revelation 17, they hated the whore. And what they did was, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So in Revelation 17, the 10 kings destroy Babylon, the system. However, the same 10 kings wailed for her and lamented for her in Revelation chapter 18. So you see, it is two different Babylons. Let's continue. Revelation chapter 18, verse 10. Standing afar off for the fear of a torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour thy judgment is come. Now previously, we saw where it will take a day for her mourning and her wailing and her punishment to take place. Now the city was destroyed in 1 hour, in a shorter period, but the vastness of her punishment will take a year. Now, one thing I want you to observe is the 10 kings that were wailing and lamenting for her, they stood afar off. And you will see this statement happening over and over from here onwards, standing afar off. Nobody got close to her. Therefore, we can assume that it could have been a nuclear attack that destroyed the city. And because of the fallout, nobody could get close to the city. So they were standing afar off, and they were afraid of a torment. They did not want to get close to her. And they said, that great city, Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is her judgment come. Now, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, there are people who try to understand the book of Revelation, could in no way understand how a city can be destroyed in 1 hour. Today that we are living in, because of weaponry and technology, a city can be destroyed in an hour. So this city will be destroyed, but the 10 kings stood afar off. Nobody is coming close. Look at this. And the merchants of the earth shall shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. So this was the new group of people that God introduced, the merchants of the earth. And they are weeping and mourning over her, not because they love her, but they are mourning over her because no man buy their merchandise anymore. Their warehouse is full. They have a big inventory, and nobody is going to buy it anymore. This is why they are weeping and mourning over her. So definitely, we are talking about a physical city. Now let us see what the merchandise, what type of merchandise they have, these merchants. The merchandise of gold, silver, precious stone, and pearls. So this is jewelry, and fine linen, and purple, and silk, and scarlet. This is beautiful clothes, and all twine wood, and all manner of vessels of ivory. This could be artwork, this could be furniture. All twine wood is used for furniture, and it is scented wood, probably cedar, probably sandalwood, and it was used for sacrifice, and it was used for making furniture. And then and all manner of vessels of most precious wood. You will be amazed to see. I was about to put some slides with different types of wood on the face of the earth, and it was too many. You have purple heart, you have redwood, you have sandalwood, you have crapple, you have so many different types of wood. So all manner of vessels will be destroyed. And the vessels of brass, iron, marble, marble tiles, marble statues, wares made out of brass and iron and marble will be destroyed. Let's go on. And cinnamon and odor and ointment and frankincense. All these are expensive perfume from around the world, and the wine, and the oil, and the fine flour, and wheat. This have to do with food and cooking, and the beast, and the sheep, and the horses. It will, again, with food and with transportation, horses, chariots, and slaves, and the souls of men, servants, and sex industry. All of this is included. And let's continue. And the fruit that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee. And all which are dainty and goodly are departed from thee. And thou shalt find them no more at all. You're going to find this repeated over and over. This is total and complete destruction. And the merchant of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off again for the second time. Nobody is getting close to her. They stand afar off for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. So the kings were weeping and wailing. The merchants are weeping and wailing, and they are all standing afar off. Therefore, again, the possibility exists that it could be a nuclear attack on that city. And they are saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And then they introduce a new set of people, and every shipmaster and all the company in ship and sailors, and as many as trade by the sea, stood afar off. This is the third time they are standing afar off. This is a new group of people, the one who were doing transportation from ocean to ocean, from country to country. They stood afar off, because in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. So you have all these people, the kings of the earth, the merchants of the earth, and now the sailors or the shippers, they are also suffering because of her punishment. Now verse 18, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? Verse 19, and they cast dust upon their head and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour, again, 1 hour is she made desolate. So the judgment of Babylon is devastating, it is sudden, it is quick, and she will be destroyed in a very short time. Now, here come rejoicing. Revelation chapter 18, verse 20. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets. So while the earth, the merchants, the kings, and the nations of the earth are weeping and wailing and mourning for her, God is calling on the holy apostles and prophets to rejoice over her, for God had avenged her. So this is the situation up until verse 18. Now look what Romans chapter 12, 19 said. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourself, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. So God is taking vengeance on Babylon on behalf of the apostles and the holy prophets. Look at this verse. And I heard another out of the altar saying, even so, Lord God Almighty, true and righteous are thy judgment. So we do not have to avenge anything from anyone. Vengeance is God's, and he will repay. And his judgment is righteous judgment. His judgment is true judgment. This is what happened in Revelation chapter 18. Now look at this. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city, Babylon, be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. So again, the ministry of angel, the angel came and took a big millstone, throw it into the sea, and now you will remember in those days, if you throw a millstone into the sea, you cannot ever and forever take that out of the sea. They do not or did not have the technology to do that. That is the destruction of Babylon. That has not happened yet, and I will show you before we are finished why I say that has not happened yet. This here is what a millstone looks like, and this is another picture of a millstone. It took a mighty angel to throw that millstone into the ocean. Let's go on. God is not finished yet. And the voice of harpers and musicians and pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. And no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. This is total and complete destruction. Let's go on. Chapter 18, verse 23. And the light of the candle shall shine no more at all in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. And thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorcery were all nations deceived. Now, nothing is wrong with getting rich. The question is, how did you get rich? And these merchants, they got rich by sorceries. This city deceived the nations of the earth by sorcery. And let me show you what we are talking about. For by thy sorcery were all the nations deceived. Do you remember this? Revelation chapter 16, verse 13. And I saw three unclean spirits, like frogs, came out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So these people, they had special demons working with them, and they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole earth to gather them to the battle of the great day of the Lord, of God Almighty. So this is how they received their power from the devil himself. You'd remember that in Revelation chapter 13, verse 1, the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And they deceived them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast. So this whole system, whether it was a religious system, it was directed by demons or spirits, and the city, Great Babylon, and her wealth was gained through demons and spirits and the evil way. So this is why God had to destroy her. Now, this is another reason why God had to destroy her. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that was slain upon the earth. So we are not talking about all the unsaved that was slain upon the earth, but all of God's people who were slain upon the earth. The source of their punishment on earth, or the source of their persecution on earth, was Babylon. That is why God had to punish them. So the blood of the prophets and the blood of the saints were found in this great city. Now, this is the end of Revelation chapter 18, verse 24. And give me a few minutes of your time. I want to show you something else. Now, the whole idea is we talk about Revelation chapter 17 as a religious system. we understand that because of the colors, because of the pattern that we see in the book of Revelation, we can very closely identify the Catholic Church. But the question is, who is this great city? Is this great city Babylon being rebuilt? And let me show you this. This is Iraq. This is a map of Iraq. All right. This is Baghdad. And this is where Babylon is. 50 miles south of Baghdad is Babylon. Now, while Saddam Hussein was alive, okay, let me get rid of this. While Saddam Hussein was alive, he was rebuilding Babylon, the city. He reached further than this. He was almost finished building the ancient city of Babylon. And it is said that most of the bricks that was used to rebuild Babylon was from the original Babylon that was built by Nebuchadnezzar. Now let me show you this. This is a coin that Saddam Hussein minted. You'll notice in the background, this is an impression of Nebuchadnezzar. This is an impression of Saddam Hussein. And he believed that he was in line with Nebuchadnezzar in rebuilding the city of Babylon. This is another coin by Saddam Hussein. Nebuchadnezzar in the background and Saddam Hussein in the front. This is another view of Babylon, the city that Saddam Hussein was rebuilding. Now, in the war against Saddam Hussein in Iraq, Colonel Powell told Schwarzkopf, do not destroy the city of Babylon. Whatever you do, whatever bombing takes place, make sure that that city is not damaged. Saddam Hussein got word of that, and he was hiding in his palace in Babylon when the war was taking place. Now you see this gate. This was the original gate from the Babylon that was built by Nebuchadnezzar. And they said it's something like 90% of the bricks that was used in this gate was from the original city itself. So Saddam Hussein was rebuilding Babylon. The question is, could this city come back to world prominence? Could this city come back to world prominence? We don't know. This is not the commercial center of the world as yet. Now, if you notice in this map, you have Syria, you have Turkey, you have Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. The ships cannot stay in the ocean and see Babylon. It's too far inland. That is one reason. Because of the hostile Arabs that is around Babylon, it's not possible that this will be a commercial center of the world. So then we have another interpretation. I've listened to a number of teachers. One of them said, Babylon could be New York City. I don't know. Another one said, Babylon is Rome. I don't know. However, from the list of things that we saw in this chapter, it has to be a city like Dubai, a city with riches, with gold and silver and precious stones and souls of men, and it has to be a city like Dubai right now. Is Dubai the Babylon that God is talking about? I don't know. So I guess the closer we get to that time, the end time, the closer we get to the rapture on the tribulation period, more of this will be revealed. But I show you the rebuilding of the actual Babylon. That is not a trade center for the world right now. Maybe miraculously that could happen. Could it be New York City? I don't know. New York City is on the decline right now. Dubai is on the rise. And Rome, I don't know the commercial aspect of Rome, the city. So we still have to figure out who is this city. And I would leave you with that thought tonight so that you can do some research and I am free for a discussion. If anybody come closer to what I just told you, I will be happy to entertain your knowledge at any cost. So we will stop here tonight. We are close, very close to the end of the book. Next week, we will be doing chapter 19, and then we have 2 more chapters after that. So I will turn over to Pastor Michael